What is going on, guys? Joranathor here, and today I am going to be bringing you a Trickstar deck profile that I've kind of updated from after the February ban list. I've done the rest of the decks that I enjoy playing, such as Rika, Exosister, and now the new Elf Note. So I thought I'd revisit my Trickstar deck profile. Maybe I'll take it to a local soon, see how it does. Because draw's now gone down to 2, obviously it loses a lot of not like stability, but it's one less draw to reincarnation draw people, which was a big gimmick of the deck. I still feel like the deck does enough, but sometimes that could just be a big enough win condition on its own. So going into the deck profile, we're playing 3 Candina because she is your normal summon that searches everything. You want to see Candina, you want to get your search from Candina. Pretty self-explanatory. Playing 2 Lycoris, mainly as kind of a dodge for either like Imperm or Veiler, but also because with Divaridis now, which I will go into a little bit later, and also Herald, which once again I'll cover in a moment. I wanted more fairies and I wanted more under level 3s to be able to get Divaridis out a bit more consistently. The end board that I aim for now is to either go for a Holly Angel with Bella Madonna underneath, or to go for a Holly Angel with Noble Angel and Divaridis underneath, or for Noble Angel with Divaridis and maybe like Lycoris or something underneath. Divaridis is on majority of end boards that I go for now, so having something else that's level 3 or lower is great. And I also found that even if you're not dodging the Imperm or the Veiler, bringing the Lycoris back to your Candina back to your hand with the Lycoris and using her to link is better than trying to get the Candina back in your hand somehow later in the combo. So you could play 3, but Lycoris doesn't do enough in the hand on her own to warrant you playing 3. And if you're playing 1, you're not really seeing her. Maybe 1 is the correct ratio to go for, but I feel like 2 is just a good solid middle ground. The same reason why I'm playing 2 Corobane. You kind of, like, to extend combos and things, you can just special summon her from your hand if you only control Trickstars, and, we're only playing Trickstars, really. So she can just summon herself for free. Good extension, but it also gives you that surprise factor for the damage step. If you have already used a Corobane, sometimes your opponent's like, oh, well, you only play 1 Corobane, or like you didn't add it back to your hand, so you don't have the Corobane. They attack you, and suddenly you slam down a Corobane, you have a 4k Holy Angel. Funny. Lilybell, I've put in the Lilybell. Once again, little partnership with Divaridis. But she has come up in a few games when you need to get just that little bit of extra damage in. She can special summon herself when you search for her, and you've got quite a few ways of searching for her. Aqua Angel. I feel like I should probably be playing 3 of this. Maybe I'll drop the Lilybell and play a 3rd Aqua Angel. Maybe I drop a Lycoris and play a 3rd Aqua Angel. You can never see enough of this card. It does enough on its own. You can get into Noble Angel and get a search with just the Aqua Angel, and you can look at your opponent's hand and all face down cards. So if you're using her straight away, you can look at your opponent's hand. If you see a Nibiru and you don't have your Herald, you know to hang fire a little bit. If you don't see a Nibiru, you know you can just keep on going. And then you can see what other hand traps they have to kind of try and play around. Probably should be playing 3 Aqua Angel. For the reason that we're playing 3 Hoodie, you just want to see it, you want to use it to be able to extend. It's ridiculously helpful. She is the way that you search Fusion. I have dropped the Defusion, because if I had Fusion in my hand and was then searching for Defusion, it just wasn't doing too much extra. And then in the times that you saw Defusion in your hand, especially if you were going 2nd, you just had a dead card that didn't do anything. The upside of Defusion just didn't outweigh the downsides, so I have taken it out. We're still playing 3 Festival. Yeah, you see Festival and you're happy. You summon in 2 tokens, it lets you just go off, and it's also protection from the grave. So 3 Festival. You always play 3 Festival. Don't think you'd ever play less than 3 Festival. I've already touched on the 1 Fusion. You don't really want to see it because you're searching for it. If you do see it, you're not overly worried, but you'd prefer to be searching with the hoodie. 3 light stage for the same reason we're playing 3 Candina. It is the start. It is the card that you want to see. It also can deal extra effect damage. And if you're against Radiant Typhoon, if you're against Dracotail, you can force them into activating their face down card when they don't want to. Otherwise, they risk losing it at the end of the turn or having to use it in the end phase when they don't quite get the advantage. I think people sleep on how good Light Stage actually is, with the effect of locking a face down card. Like, if your opponent sets a Solemn Strike game 3 and you light stage the strike, you just turn it off completely. It lets you keep going. I was thinking about putting Terraforming in here, but the big problem that you have is being drolled. If you're Terraforming for a light stage and get drolled, it's bad. If you light stage and add a Candina and get drolled, at least you've still got your Candina normal summon. That's why I don't play Terraforming. Also because you can, at worst case, use Candina to search for the light stage, or use the Bandramatis to search for light stage or live stage. But you want to see light stage in your opening hand. We are playing the 1 live stage. It does help adding things back from the graveyard, so you can add back the Candina if you didn't have the Lycoris to do your switching shenanigans. But it's also just letting you get another free body on board. And it's a token, so it's a level 2 or lower, which lets you get into Divaridis a little bit easier. I know you don't really want to be losing the extra 200 damage from the light stage, but if it's the difference between having Noble Angel, Divaridis, and a Lycoris, you want to search your live stage from your Bandramatis, get you that token, add a Candina back to your hand so that you can play for next turn. I have dropped down to the 1 of Reincarnation. As much as I love Reincarnation, as much as Reincarnation Draw is absolutely hilarious, you don't really want to see it anymore, especially going second in game 1. Reincarnation does absolutely nothing for you going second, and it's just an amazing interruption going first, especially if you partner it with Draw to Reincarnation Draw and force your opponent to have 0 cards in their hand, which can be extremely funny. But you just don't want to see it, you want to search it. The same with the Maiden of Blue Tears. It does absolutely nothing for you going second, sorry. There's everything for you going first. You want to search for it. If you see it, you're not too worried. But, you know, like, Noble Angel to search for Maiden of Blue Tears can bait out a hand trap. I have dropped the Angel with Blue Tears, because, once again, going first, this was just a completely dead card in the hand, unless you wanted to do an extra 200 or 800 damage to your opponent. It's difficult, because I love this card, but I think it's a side option now. That is it for the Trickstars. We're not playing any engines, we're not playing any variants, because if you play anything else, you have to not play Festival, and Festival is just too good. I have seen variants of this going around with, say, like Fiendsmith and Kashtira. I fully understand the thought process behind it. I think it's absolutely great being able to go into Wave King, but do you want to go into Wave King and stop 2 special summons, or do you want a Festival to summon 2 tokens and have your entire Trickstar combo with a protection in the grave? I prefer the latter. Going into the hand traps, we're playing 3 Fua. I feel like Fua's just the hand trap that everybody needs to play now. A lot of decks summon from extra deck. A couple of them summon from the deck. It also means that if your opponent is using Ash Blossom on this, they are less likely to use the Ash Blossom on the light stage. Love Fua. Also love Herald. It wasn't until I started playing Melodious, and Herald was in Melodious, that I was like, wait, the Trickstars are fairies? If you, like, this is the only way for the deck to play around Nibiru. And you're not really playing around it too much, I guess, but, like, this also lets you stop your opponent from using Droll on you, and it also stops your opponent, if you really need to use it, from using a Molchami on you. If you go first, you see a Herald, you have no need to use it for all the hand traps. Your opponent plays a monster that tries to search, and you use the Herald effect to discard another fairy, which most of the time you would have used the effect of Fusion, you would have used Live Stage, you would have used... I don't really... We play 3 Herald of Orange Light. It is, you know, until I started playing Melodious, I didn't actually realise how good which sounds strange, how good this card is. It stops your opponent from hand trapping you on your turn, and if your opponent doesn't hand trap you on your turn and you've still got the Herald in hand for their turn after you've gone first and set up your full combo, having that negate and destroy in your hand by discarding another fairy is great, and you pretty much guarantee that you add another fairy back to your hand because you're banishing fusion to add something back. You've also got the option of live stage to add something back to your hand, and I guess if you really need to, you can use reincarnation to kind of bring back a monster. Use Lycoris to swap it out, and yes, okay, you could have discarded the Lycoris, but if you want the Lycoris on board, it's just getting something back to your hand to be able to discard with the Herald if you don't want to discard the Lycoris for some reason. Lycoris is probably the thing you don't mind discarding, but if it's, you know, an Aqua Angel that can summon itself back, and you had to have a Lycoris on board, and you discard the Aqua Angel instead, because yes, okay, it's a water, but it's still a fairy. Love Herald. Herald's great. Any fairy deck should play Herald. Play 3 Nibiru, because it is just that hand trap that kind of stops your opponent playing the game if you do it at the right point. Same with Droll. Most of the time your opponent searches, you activate Droll, it can just end a turn. I feel like maybe Droll and Nibiru are like the hand traps that I'm going through really enjoying at the moment, and I'm just putting them in every single deck. I think Droll going down to 2 means people are more likely to play it now, which is kind of frustrating, and it makes it that little bit more annoying. You know, like with Shifter being down to 1 now, if your opponent shifters you, you're even more annoyed because you know that they've drawn the 1 of. If they draw you, you know they've drawn a 1 of 2. It just makes it a bit more annoying. But Droll's a good hand trap, I can see why it's at 2. Playing 3 Imperm just works. We're playing 3 Purge, because yes, it turns off Dark Water and Fire, but Aqua Angel and Fuelos, not Fuelos even because it's a wind, silly me. Aqua Angel and then the 2 extra deck cards being turned off from stopping your opponent from searching is worth the trade-off. The Aqua Angel still gets its like hereditary summon effect because it doesn't activate to summon itself, which is cool, but you do then lose the ability to look at your opponent's hand and all set cards they control. But once again, the trade-off is definitely worth it. I'm looking into the extra deck. I've had Typhon in here for ages. It's actually been a long time since I've summoned Typhon. It was like really good when Ryzer was running around. It's kind of okay against Dracotail, but there's just not as much of a need to normal summon something and go into a Typhon to bounce something back to your hand now. Probably change it for something else. Not quite sure what I would change it to, but I'm definitely thinking of changing Typhon. SP's great, but you've got to remember that this has to Hoodie has to special summon a Trickstar Link monster for you to be able to search fusion, so you can't make an SP and then search the fusion. It has to be for a Trickstar Link monster. But SP is just a good card to out problems, and you know, if you're in the real big grind game and your opponent's top decking and you have an SP on board, you're probably going to win the grind game. Playing 2 Bloom. You never use Bloom's effect to make your opponent draw a card unless you want to like reincarnation draw them on your turn, but I don't. Yeah, there was some occasion where my opponent had an empty hand, I had a reincarnation grave, you make a Bloom, you make them draw, so a reincarnation on board and I needed it in the grave. You make a Bloom, they draw, so they have a card in their hand, you reincarnation that card, and then you can use reincarnation's effect from the grave. It's a very niche use, but it is something that you can use for it. Majority of the time though, you're not activating Bloom's effect, you're just using her as a material to get rid of Hoodie to search for fusion. Playing 2 Colchica, was playing it at 3, but you can only summon 1 of her per turn, and if you're summoning a 3rd Colchica, I really question how the game hasn't finished. Because Colchica can banish herself from the graveyard to do a lot of damage. Damage equal to the attack of your opponent's monster. So if you're banishing it and, you know, like hitting at 2k, stealing 2k damage on top of all the 200 or 400 damage that you're doing, it's, you know, I enjoy Colchica, but I don't think you need more than 2 of her. Divaridis. I have no idea why I wasn't playing Divaridis before. She just opens up so much to do with this deck because it deals damage every time your opponent summons. So if your opponent normal summons and has an effect to search that isn't when it's summoned, if it's a separate effect from the summon, Your opponent takes 200, and then you pop it with a Noble Angel before they get that effect. Diva Riddis kind of made me enjoy this deck a lot more. I don't think I was playing it wrong before, but I feel like I'm playing it better now that I have Diva Riddis. We're still playing 2 Noble Angel. We're still playing 2 Holy Angel, 1 Foxglove, and 1 Bella Madonna. You know, Diva Riddis is also another name for your Bella Madonna if it gets to that point. I have dropped the Sweet Guitar in favour of the 2 Band Dramatists, mainly because I just never summoned it, so I didn't feel like there was much of a point having it. It does also open you up to being able to play Prosperity if you want to, because you can banish Typhon, SP, and a Band Dramatist, because you shouldn't ever really be going into 2 of them. I honestly don't know why I'm playing 2, because I'm only playing 1 Fusion. I guess it's... Do you know what? I don't know. I don't know why I'm playing 2. I can only ever summon 1. Why would I play 2? That weird, odd Dogmatica card that banishes 2 from your extra deck, or destroys 2. I can't even remember what it is. I guess you could send a Dramatis so that you've still got 1, but I don't know why I'm playing 2. Couldn't tell you. I'm sorry. Maybe I'll figure it out one day. But she is just like the search card. She searches any Trickstar card, same as Candina, but you can only summon her with Fusion. So rather than like a side deck, these are cards. I do side Small World, Thrust, and Reincarnation, 3, 3, and 2. Mainly for game 3, you just full on try and Reincarnation draw your opponent to win the game. It's been my game plan for a while. Probably going to be my game plan for quite a while, because Reincarnation draw is just so funny and I love it. I've popped the Crimson Heart in here. You used to play this with the old time rules, and I know that was a very, very long time ago. But now, she's not as good. You would make a Holy Angel, summon something underneath it. It'd force your opponent to negate it, otherwise they took 200 and then lost in time. If they did negate the Holy Angel, you could then go into Crimson Heart and summon something else underneath it so that you gain 200. Or if you had a Lycoris, you would make the Crimson Heart, use its effect, discard something, both people draw, your opponent takes 200 because of the Lycoris and loses in time. It was just really scummy and really funny, but with the new time rules, you don't play her as much. She is still possibly an option, because you can discard a Trickstar card, so you can discard Reincarnation turn 1, and then use Reincarnation effect to special summon something back from the grave. I just feel like there's more cards that you would go into, as opposed to going into Crimson Heart now. Nightshade is something I've also thought about playing, but you would be normal summoning the Nightshade rather than normal summoning the Candina, and I feel like normal summoning the Candina and searching anything is better. The reason for it is she's just kind of like a 1 card, or like a half card starter, I guess, because you Nightshade to go into Bloom, Nightshade summons herself back, you use Bloom and Nightshade to go into Noble Angel to search for the Maiden of Blue Tears, so like it's not amazing, but she is a free link too. And if you partner that with already having the festival, it does open you up to kind of quite a bit. You could end up, if you have this and Festival, you can have Noble Angel and Diva Riddis. But Candina's your normal summon and Candina's your search. It's the normal summon that you want. You don't, it's a difficult one, because I feel like Nightshade has a place, but you're almost then forced to play 1-for-1. And then if you draw this and the 1-for-1, 1-for-1's just a dead card in your hand. And also 1-for-1 discarding a monster isn't always the best option. This is a thought process that I've gone down, just not at the moment. Once again, talking about Angel of Blue Tears, I love this card, I find it great. It's kind of like a better Imperm, because you can use it, and then in the next turn you can set a trap directly from your hand or deck. If you've set it from the hand, it can be activated that turn. So if you've, I don't know, like forward, because you have an empty board and Angel of Blue Tears is in your grave and you draw a trap and somehow effect damage is dealt somewhere along the lines, because this is like, if effect damage is dealt, it's not you dealing effect damage as far as I know. Yes, if effect damage is inflicted, so if your opponent has a way of inflicting effect damage, you can use the Angel of Blue Tears effect, and then you can set a trap directly from your hand. Very niche, never really comes up, which is why I've now probably side it more than anything. You just don't want a dead card in your hand when you're, say, going first and you have an Angel Blue Tears in your hand. It's just not ideal. Dark Rumored Nightmare is also something that I thought about playing, because as far as I can tell, it does 300 for the Lycoris effect, and then it does another 300 for the Light Stage effect, because Light Stage says it deals 200 damage every time effect damage is dealt. So I believe the way that it works is your opponent draws, Lycoris activates to deal 200, Light Stage activates to deal 200, and then Dark Rumored Nightmare procs twice to deal 600. So your opponent's taking 1,000 every time they draw a card. But if you have it in your main deck, and you're going second for game 1, and you see it in your hand, it does nothing. And I feel like this deck needs cards that does something. Very funny to use though. Probably something I'd look into going forward. So that is it for the main deck, main profile. I am going to switch to another tab on my EDO Pro that has all of the hand traps on there and talk about where your opponent should be hand trapping you so that you can keep an eye out when you're playing this deck, and also kind of ways for you to maybe play around or to bait things out. So bear with me just a moment and we will jump across. Nibiru, we don't have any in-deck way other than Herald of stopping Nibiru. We don't end up with a Omni negate, we don't end up with a monster negate. We do end up with just options to destroy. So it's very, very, very difficult to play around Nibiru. Honestly, I think you're better off just going for it rather than trying to play around Nibiru, because you end up with such a lackluster board if you only use 4 summons. If you've got the Herald, obviously you can just completely go for it, but it is just not worth playing around Nibiru. You're in much better situation just going for it. And if you get Nibiru, then you get Nibiru, because if you try and play around Nibiru and only summon 4 times, you're not setting up anything anyway. Shifter can be very difficult for us. It doesn't completely shut down the deck, but if your opponent is playing Shifter, obviously they're not affected by it. So it gets rid of the reincarnation to special summon from the grave. It gets rid of banishing fusion to be able to add a monster back, and then it gets rid of attacking with Lilybell to be able to get something back, and finally it gets rid of a live stage, getting a Trickstar back, because everything's banished and you can only get it back from the graveyard. So Shifter hurts quite a bit. We could probably get away with playing it, because any deck that doesn't run Shifter, having to then deal with, you could probably end up on Noble Angel with the trap and have searched for 1 or 2 cards potentially. So the question is would you rather end up on a very, very lackluster board and have shifted your opponent, or go for full combo? With it being at 1, it's even more annoying when your opponent shifters you, because you know they drew the 1 of. But this deck kind of does struggle with Shifter, but it doesn't completely shut it down. Drawl, on the other hand, there's the Light Stage search, the Candina search, and the Bandramatis search, and the Hoodie search that I can think of off the top of my head. So being drawled does hurt. The only way to play around these is to have a Herald. Much like with Nibiru, you're searching 4 times at least with this deck. So if your opponent's going to draw you, they're going to do it straight away. You might as well just go for it and not worry about playing around draw, because you can't. Just go for it. If you get drawled, you get drawled. Sometimes that's how the game goes. Same way, if you get nibbed, it is just sometimes how the game goes. If your opponent has it, your opponent has it. There's not a lot you can do. So personally, I just go for it rather than play around them. Obviously, if you've got Light Stage and Candina in hand, you're probably better off having the search from Candina, because you can still activate the Light Stage to do the effect damage. If you get draws, it's fully hand dependent. If you have, say, Candina, Hoodie, and Light Stage, you want to search for the Festival rather than getting a Lycoris, so you would play the Candina. If you have, Festival, Candina, and Light Stage, you want to play the Light Stage to get the Hoodie, because then if you do get drawled, you're not getting the fusion, but you can still go into a couple Link 2s, potentially into a Link 3. You just gotta gauge it by what's in your hand. But 9 times out of 10, your opponent's going to be drawing the first card that you activate. Moving on to Ash Blossom and Dominus Purge, they kind of do relatively the same thing. Purge is just specific for adding from deck to hand, whereas Ash Blossom has the like special summoning a card from the deck. There's nothing really in here that lets us special summon from the deck, and there's nothing in here that lets us send a card from the deck to the graveyard. So it is just whether your opponent's playing a deck that can play Purge for you to worry about it. If they're going to Ash Blossom or Purge something, it will be the light stage. It could also be the Candina or the Noble Angel if they don't want you to get the trap. But they are more likely to play either Veiler or Imperm on the Candina and Noble Angel, and then the Ghost Mourner on the Noble Angel because it's a special summoned monster. Any of these four, so Ash, Purge, Veiler, and Imperm, can be detrimental but dependent on your hand. If you think your opponent has an Ash or a Purge and doesn't have a Veiler or an Imperm, and you have a Light Stage and Candina in your hand, you can always normal the Candina, and then if your opponent ashes the Candina, you kind of know you're safe with the Light Stage, because they can't Imperm and they can't Veiler the Light Stage. So I would always be tempted to play the Candina first, mainly because he also searches any Trickstar card. Your opponent may think that you're going to be searching for the light stage, and if they can stop you from searching for the light stage, it could potentially end your turn. But then it's also a case of, if you're searching for the light stage, you're getting another search afterwards. So with their one Ash, they're stopping two searches, which could, the same could be said if you want to go for light stage. If you play light stage and you get a search and they haven't done anything to it, it could be because they have a Veiler or an Imperm in their hand and they're waiting for you to play the Candina just to negate it that way. The correct thing for your opponent to do is to Ash or Purge the light stage and to Imperm or Veiler the Candina. But sometimes you can make them Ash your Candina and play your light stage without a worry. The reason I've kept Ban Dramatis down here is because I genuinely think this is where people should be hand trapping. I don't think it's worth trying to hand trap Trickstar right at the beginning, because they've got enough now to be able to keep going and at least set up a little bit of a board. Majority of the time, you're going to be using Ban Dramatis to search for Festival, and if you already have Festival, you're going to be using it to search for Reincarnation. But using your Ash, your Veiler, your Imperm, and then if there's a trap already in the grave and they purge this and destroy it as well, purging this and destroying it flat out ends your turn. You just don't have enough to then keep going unless you already have the Festival in hand and you end on a Noble Angel that can still get it summoned back. But if you don't have Festival and this gets destroyed, you're kind of sad, which is like where Ghost Ogre, I guess, kind of comes in as well. But I genuinely think if they have Ash, Purge, Veiler, Imperm, Mourner, that they should be hitting the Ban Dramatis, because you've already used your, majority of the time, you would have already used your normal summon with Candina to search for a card. You've special summoned Hoodie and linked it off to add Fusion to your hand, which is a one-of. You've already summoned your Cold Chica as your link monster, because you'd make Candina into the Cold Chica, and even if you've swapped out and have a Lycoris, and you've kept the Candina back in your hand, it's still the best place to hand trap. If you think your opponent is going to Veiler or Imperm, hold on to your Lycoris for the Ban Dramatis. Yes, okay, it's kind of sad that you then don't get the special summon from Noble Angel, because this is back in your extra deck rather than in your grave, but you would rather have this back in the extra deck and for you to search for Festival than for this to just get negated and you don't do anything. You've already done enough when it gets to this point. This is the chokehold for the deck, and I don't think enough people kind of realise it. The one person who had previously played Trickstar as well, and he had effect Veilered my Candina, and he also had Ash, so he Ashed the light stage. I was like, you just have everything. Thankfully, I still had Festival and could kind of keep going. But when I played the band and then attempted to search for something, it was like, I've got something to question you after the game. Could you keep the Ban Dramatis to the side? I was like, yeah, sure, of course. And he was like, if I had Ash this, what did you do? I just looked at him and I went, nothing. I pass. I wouldn't have been able to do anything. I didn't have a Herald to negate it. I didn't have Call By or Cross Out in the deck at all. I was like, if you had negated this, I wouldn't have been able to search and continue. Because he had used Veiler and Imperm, I was forced to use the Festival early. And like, okay, I would have been able to do a little bit. I could have had, you know, the trap with Noble Angel. So maybe I exaggerated a bit when I said nothing, but I was like, this was definitely the thing that you needed to hit at some point. By letting me get this, it let me keep going, it let me set up, not like an amazing board, but it gave me the special summon back with Noble Angel, it let me search for the trap with Noble Angel. It kind of let me keep going, and I needed this as a last resort. You know, if he hadn't have ashed the light stage, I could have added the Lycaris to attempt to dodge the Veiler or the Imperm. I could have added like Lilybell to special summon itself. I could have done stuff, but I feel like if he had negated this, I would have been in a very, very bad position. Keeping on the subject of Veiler, Imperm, and Ghost Mourner, there is a chance that they hit the Holy Angel or the Divaridis, especially if they've got Imperm on their turn. They will probably Imperm the Divaridis so that they don't take damage while they're summoning and you pop their stuff with your Noble Angel. In the same way, they could just Imperm the Noble Angel on their turn so that you then don't get any pops. If they're more than likely going to save the Imperm for their turn against you, unless they are just flat out trying to stop you completely. Imperming the Holy Angel also gets rid of its protection. Obviously, they can't Veiler on their turn because Veiler specifies opponent's main phase, and Ghost Mourner is when your opponent special. So if your opponent special summons a monster, you discard it, target one of those monsters. So once again, that has to be on your opponent's turn, unless they're mourning whatever you get back with Reincarnation. But at that point, it's not really doing anything. But they will more than likely save the Imperm for their turn, so you don't have to worry about that too much. And if they do use it to negate, you know, like a Candina or something, and you can still get into Divaridis and Holy Angel, it just means they're okay. They're not, you know, unless your opponent draws another one or has two, but if your opponent has like 3 or 4 hand traps, odds are you're not playing the game and they aren't either, and it just becomes a bit of a grind. Ghost Bell kind of hurts this a bit because you do have stuff that banishes itself from grave, for instance Fusion, Reincarnation, and Kolchika. Ghost Bell I think hurts a little bit more than DD Crow does. Crow can... oh, sorry, Festival's included in that as well, and I guess in a way Lilybell because it adds things back to your hand. So Ghost Bell can stop you from special summoning with Reincarnation, it can stop you searching with adding back with Fusion, it can stop the damage with Kolchika. If they're going to DD Crow something, they will DD Crow the Fusion or Kolchika or Festival. Because if they DD Crow the Reincarnation, you can just chain it. So they will Bell the Reincarnation along with Fusion, Kolchika, and Fez. But DD Crow, sorry, I should really include Lilybell in this because they can Bell your Lilybell and make you cry. But DD Crow would be hitting everything apart from the Reincarnation because you just chain it. If they're going to Crow anything, they're probably going to Crow the Festival because then it means you lose your protection. Ghost Ogre can be a very difficult one for this deck because if you normal summon the Candina and they Ghost Ogre, I mean, they could Ghost Ogre and chain Imperm or Veiler to negate it and then send the card to the graveyard. That could potentially just be enough to end your turn. But if they don't negate and they just Ghost Ogre you, it kind of then means that you have to search the Festival with Candina, because if you search Hoodie, unless you already have Festival or the Blue Tears, not Blue Tears, I cannot remember what the level 4 water is called. The level 4 water Trickstar that can special summon itself, but then it's from the grave if you control a link. So essentially you have to search Festival if your Cantina gets Ghost Ogred. I think Ghost Ogre is like a bit of a silent killer for this deck. Once again, if they Ghost Ogre the Holly Angel, you don't have the Link monster on board, and our trap specifies that you have to control a Link monster. So Ghost Ogre, I think, is like good against us. Not amazing. I think it's good. Impulse, the only two cards that Impulse really stops is Reincarnation and Lycoris. And if you're trying to Lycoris and they've got a trap engrave and they Impulse it and destroy your Lycoris, it's quite sad. Especially if they like Imperm and then you Lycoris to try and dodge and they Impulse it. Even if they don't have the trap engrave, it stops you from switching out and the Imperm still hits the Cantina. But apart from that, apart from Reincarnation and apart from Lycoris, it is just Foxglove Wish that this stops. And if your opponent's stopping you from special summoning from the extra deck with a monster that's already been sent to the graveyard, I think you're okay if they Impulse that. But it is something to keep in mind. As a way, you could kind of like Lycoris to almost bait them into Impulsing it. But there's not really too much of a way to bait out Impulse because we only have two ways that we're summoning anyway. If I had to rank these in order of what hurts the most, that's why I've put these three at the beginning. And then next would be Ash, because they can Ash so many of our cards. And then probably Bell, because Bell can stop so many of them as well. They would be the main 5 to look out for. I guess Purge as well, but Purge is very like deck dependent. And then Veiler, Imperm, Mourner. And then probably Ghost Ogre to look out for a bit. Crow, not so much. It still hurts, but not so much. And then the 2 Dominus cards, it is just entirely matchup dependent. So if your opponent's playing like very heavy water deck or a very heavy earth deck, you know like the water deck's not playing Purge and you know the earth deck isn't playing Impulse. So I guess I could kind of take those out, but I wanted to discuss them a little bit. If you guys have any questions or if there's anything that you think I've missed, please, obviously, feel free to drop it down in the comments. I'm hoping these kind of discussions open people up so that they can look at the deck a bit more and kind of think what they would want to play. I prefer also having these talks rather than just being like, I play this because good. It also gives you a bit of an insight into thought process behind the deck as well. If you are thinking of picking up Trickstar, or in my previous video, if you were thinking of picking up the Elf Note cards, I think this just gives you a bit more of an in-depth discussion rather than a like, oh, I'm going to copy this deck, but I don't really know what I'm doing with it. Because part of it is knowing what your cards do, but you also need to know what your opponent's cards do. And if you're not familiar with the deck, and you've just followed a couple combo lines, and your opponent, say like, ashes the Ban Dramatis because they know that's the thing to ash, you need to know of a backup plan. Rather than just, oh, they would have asked your light stage, so you get the search for festival with Ban Dramatis. Like, that might not happen, so it's good just to know the thought process around everything. As always, guys, thank you for watching. I will see you next time.